This is How to Be a Better Adult, written by Jacque A, as read by Jacque A. As I read through this chapter, we're only going to do part one. We're splitting in half because it's kind of a long chapter, but as I read through this chapter, I'm going to leave any mistakes as I stumble and stutter along, because we're going to keep this realistic. So, here's chapter one, The Third Floor. The third floor of William Hensley and Associates was shrouded in dimness. Dimness because it wasn't quite pitch-black darkness, but rather a dreary gray. The dark window shades were tightly drawn, and fluorescent lights flickered overhead, teasing the third-floor employees with a few brief moments of illumination before the gloom set back in. The only constant source of light was a dull glow of computer screens. Black-clad employees sat at cramped cubicles before their screens, working with their heads down and speaking in hushed whispers. When they did speak. But most times, they worked in silence, the gentle click-clacking of computer keys and scritching of pencil to paper was the only sound to be heard. In the dimness, at a corner cubicle, sat Hope Obiako. Hope was a small woman with an equally small demeanor, although she would beg to differ. Her kinky hair was pulled tightly into a neat bun, and her crisp slacks were starched to perfection. On the bridge of her nose sat a pair of round-frame glasses that she didn't need to see, but rather to appear well-read, and she was well-read. She just needed everyone else to know it. Hope glanced at the calendar on her desk, eyeing the day's red-marked appointment. It's almost time, she thought, her heart pounding in anticipation. She cleared the nervousness from her throat and took a sip of cold tea from her mug. Buzz! Hope jumped a bit in her seat. She'd forgotten to switch her cell phone to silent. This was a mortal sin on the third floor, as phones were banned for being unsensible tools of distraction. Hope fumbled with her desk drawer as each vibration grew louder than the last, piercing the silence that blanketed the office. A loud, sharp shh shot through the air, followed by chair creaks and rustling papers. Someone was getting upset. Heat rose to Hope's cheeks, and her palms slipped with sweat, making it even harder to find that pesky phone. Finally, she spotted it, hidden underneath a pile of post-it notes. Hope grabbed the phone with her slippery hand, trying not to drop it, and quickly hung up. The missed call was from her landlady, Lisa. She knew it was only a matter of time before she'd received a text message reminding her to pay her rent. "Hey, Hope!" A whispered voice shot around the corner of Hope's cubicle. Hope winced at the sound of her name. It'd been a while since she'd been directly spoken to at work. She leaned back in her rolling chair and peeked over to see her cubicle neighbor, Alex, staring back at her. Alex had a kind of pleasant face that always seemed to be smiling, even when he wasn't. He sat up straight, but not too straight, and casually commanded the respect of a seasoned executive, although he was quite young. His brown eyes gleamed through the dimness, and his dark hair was parted and slicked like a 1950s car salesman. Hope held up her cell phone and mouthed, "Sorry." "You're fine." He swatted away Hope's apology. "I was actually going to ask you for a favor, but you look really busy today," he whispered. Hope swelled with pride. She couldn't help it. Alex said she looked not just busy, but really busy. He must have noticed her glancing at her calendar, or maybe it was the tea. No, it was definitely the calendar. "A bit, but not too busy to help out a cubicle neighbor." Hope flashed a toothy grin, which he returned. "What do you need?" "Well, could you please grab me another cup of coffee?" "Thanks." He thrust his empty, coffee-stained mug into her hands and swiveled back to face his work. Hope sat in her embarrassment for a moment, racking her brain for something, anything to say, to save face and snatch her shreds of power back. She imagined rolling over to Alex and letting him know she was far too busy to run errands like some kind of lowly assistant. She thought of simply placing the mug on her desk and returning to her calendar without acknowledging its audacious presence in her workspace. But instead, she responded to Alex's back with an enthused, "Sure." Hope mentally kicked herself for being a pushover and stood to make the trek to the break room at the other end of the floor. The third floor felt more like a labyrinth than a corporate office. The layout was so haphazard that one could only assume the interior designer, architect, or whoever deals with such things as cubicle arrangement had been laughed out of business. Not all the blame could be placed on their shoulders, however. The low light was actually a preference of Liz, the third floor manager. She thought having employees squint and hunch over their work would make them produce more efficiently. But in reality, they resembled evil henchmen, crafting dastardly plans in the dark. As you can imagine, this didn't do much to lift the third floor's waning morale. Hope checked her watch. It was 9:45. She quickened her pace. She didn't want to be away from her desk for too long. It was nearly time for her appointment. The break room housed a giant, glowing, state-of-the-art coffee machine. Liz was a fan of cutting corners, but when it came to coffee, W&H employees were provided the cream of the crop. They had to stay alert and awake to work, after all. Hope dispensed fresh black coffee into Alex's mug, then scurried out of the break room. On her way out, she bumped into a small woman, nearly spilling on her. Instead, the scalding coffee splashed onto Hope's hand, which she had used to shield her near victim from the hot liquid. "I'm so sorry," Hope whispered to the woman as she winced in pain and wiped her wet, hot hand on her pant leg. Unfortunately for Hope, the little woman she'd bumped into was Monica, the head of HR. Usually, Monica worked on the 7th floor, so her presence was an unpleasant surprise. There she stood, with her mouth gaping open and her arms outstretched with a pen in one hand, like the humanized version of the saying, "You've got to be kidding me." "You've got to be kidding me," she whispered. "Did you spill that on me?" Hope examined her throbbing red palm, then looked Monica up and down, from her atrocious red bob with her gaudy blonde highlights down to her tacky shoes. There was not a single drop of coffee on her pristinely plain being. "No, you're fine." "Geez, I just bought this skirt last week." Monica sharply exhaled and wiped imaginary coffee off of her white skirt. "There's nothing there," Hope assured her. "You definitely spilled on me," Monica sighed. "I can't believe this," she griped as she continued wiping. Hope had dealt with people like Monica enough to know that she was putting on a show to receive sympathy of some sort, and for that very reason, she wasn't going to give in. "Mix vinegar with water and spray it right on the stain. It'll lift right up." Hope recalled a handy tidbit she'd read while browsing the web. Monica stopped fussing with her skirt and glared at her. "Thanks for the tip." Her eyes moved from Hope to the coffee cup. "What are you doing with Alex's mug anyway?" Hope examined the nondescript mug in her hand. Monica shot Hope with an accusatory look that made her uncomfortable. "Does he know you have it?" "Yes." Hope clenched her jaw and gripped the mug tighter. "I'm grabbing coffee for him." Well, I'll let you get back to that," Monica hissed dismissively. "And all's forgiven for the coffee spill, okay?" She slit her eyes and flashed a patronizing smile, bestowing her forgiveness upon her like some precious jewel. "Okay, see you around." Hope returned her smile for the sake of office politics and because her entire career and livelihood could be ended with one stroke of the pen in Monica's tiny, manicured fingers. Back at her cubicle, Hope handed Alex his half-spilled coffee. "Here you go." "Thanks. You're the best." Alex grabbed the mug without looking up from his computer screen. Hope fumed. In her head, of course. In reality, she responded to the slight with a pathetic, "You're welcome," and plopped back into her chair, defeated. All right, and that's part 1 of chapter 1 of How to Be a Better Adult. We're laying the groundwork and setting the scene of William Hensley and Associates, Hope's co-workers, and the inner workings of her mind. Hang tight and stay tuned for part 2.